looks like the numbers have leveled off. Just as a reminder, this is being recorded. So for those who are joining us in the video recording later, welcome as well. But we'll go ahead and get started with tonight's installment of the speaker series. Before I introduce our speaker, just a few reminders. All of our attendees listen view mode only. So we have our presenter here, as well as myself and our International Vice Justice, Sister Nicole Wingett, to help with some of the behind the scenes logistics. But without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce our speaker, Joan-Claire Gilbert, who's with Joan-Claire Consulting. She's an attorney coach and trusted advisor to managing partners at mid-sized law firms. She helps her clients find a better way of achieving their goals by working at the root level of how they can relate to themselves, others, and life. Joan-Claire guides law firm owners to create collaborative teams that attract and keep top talent while increasing the long-term profitability of the firm. A formerly practicing attorney from Portland, Oregon, now living in Phoenix, Arizona, Joan-Claire is a graduate of Princeton University and Notre Dame Law School, go Irish. Before finding a better way and becoming a professional coach, she struggled for years with chronic health issues, stress, anxiety, and feeling like the problem was always out there. Joan-Claire enjoys surfing in Hawaii, surf skating in Arizona, which I hope she'll tell us about, and spending quality time with her husband and their 3 kids. As you'll hear more about tonight, she offers one-on-one group coaching, workshops, presentations for attorney and law firm clients, as well as law students, aspiring law students, and other members of our fraternity. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Joan-Claire, and she's going to get started with tonight's presentation. If you do have any questions as we go through, please use the Q&A feature to submit those. Sister Wingett's going to help me monitor them, and we're also hoping to reserve some time at the end for questions. So Joan-Claire, turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Joan-Claire Gilbert, and I'm thrilled to be your presenter tonight on mental fitness and how it can increase your productivity and reduce imposter syndrome. Whether you're watching live or on the recording, I'm thrilled to be with you here. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Nicole, next slide, please, on productivity. So by productivity, I mean your ability to increase the quality and quantity of the work you get done and have as little stress and effort as possible. Another way to describe this is let's maximize your energy while you achieve your most desired outcomes. And who here wants more energy and better outcomes? Yay. All right, imposter syndrome. So by that, I'm referring to the self-doubt and chronic comparison with our peers that many of us experience despite our many gifts and accomplishments. And let's face it, we wouldn't be here tonight if we weren't high achievers or extremely driven and competent. Yet many of us still struggle with that nagging self-doubt and belief, I'm not enough or I'm not doing good enough work. And by practicing mental fitness, you can significantly reduce those unhelpful thoughts and improve your performance and your well-being. Next slide. So I would love us to start off this workshop or presentation with the intention to create a mini breakthrough or miracle for you tonight through your increased self-awareness about your default pattern of thinking or way of being that gets in the way of your optimal performance, well-being, relationships. And the way we're going to do that is I want to encourage all of you to listen for the gold. Listen as if you paid $10,000 to be here tonight. Direct all your attention to the presentation and what you're hearing and insights you might be having. Silence your phone, close your email tabs. Research has shown almost uniformly that multitasking lowers productivity. Next slide, Nicole. So I just have a slide here with the quote by Dr. Clifford Nass of Stanford. And I think he has a really powerful statement here in a study that was conducted years ago. It says, it turns out multitaskers are terrible at every aspect of multitasking. They're terrible at ignoring irrelevant information. They're terrible at keeping information in their head nicely and neatly organized. And they're terrible at switching from one task to another. Even the multitaskers who thought they were excellent at multitasking were proved to be terrible at it. So don't want to diminish your self-esteem with your ability to multitask, but I'd like you to try on the idea that multitasking actually is not an improved productivity aid. It's actually quite detrimental. Next slide. All right, so who is Joan-Claire Gilbert? Who is this person speaking to you about mental fitness? I'm an executive leadership coach. As Nicole mentioned, I'm a formerly practicing attorney. I practiced in Oregon for several years before moving here to Phoenix 4 years ago with my family. Wife, mother of 3, kids ages 14, 12, and 6. Native to Oregon, but Hawaii really feels like home. Nicole mentioned, surfing and surf skating. So just to elaborate a little bit on the surf skating, obviously there's not a lot of water here in Phoenix in the desert. So I practice using a skateboard that has really loose trucks and is actually intended to help you train for surfing. But I was a runner in high school and college, and I still really love to just be outside and active. Just love to be in nature. So why do I care about mental fitness? How did I get into, coaching and mental fitness from being an attorney? Starting my second year of college, I started having some serious bouts of depression and anxiety. After my first year of college, I went to Argentina, was in a severe bus accident that 4 people died in, and brought up some childhood trauma stuff, and never really faced it until I became a coach, actually 3 years ago. But it was really personal development when I got into that 6, 7 years ago that really awakened me to the idea that I could improve my well-being and my performance and everything through my way of thinking. And that was really powerful for me because I never really had a experience or education in that, even going through elite education. And mental fitness was really something that gave me some really powerful tools to practice in my daily work and in my relationships to combat those unhelpful patterns of thinking and really just feel my best. And I'm so grateful because not only has it helped me feel better, but it's actually reduced a lot of those painful physical symptoms I was having as part of my autoimmune spinal arthritis that I was diagnosed with when my second child was born in 2011. All right, next slide. So right off the bat, I would love everyone attending this call to get a real lived experience of what mental fitness feels like, a foundational piece of it at least. And for the purposes of this exercise, you can just think of like we have 2 distinct regions of the brain. I'm simplifying this, of course, but for the purposes of mental fitness, there's the sage region or regions of the brain, which is where your empathy, curiosity, creativity, purpose, and laser-focused action arise. And then there's the saboteur regions, which is pretty much your survival brain or your fight, flight, freeze region of the brain. So what I would love for us to do in a few minutes here is just, I'm going to guide you through a few-minute exercise, help you drop out of that analytical way of thinking. Maybe there's some problems on your mind, or you're worried about something. Just want you to let go of that in the next few minutes and just really be present to what I'm guiding you to do, which is to focus on one of your 5 senses, essentially. And this is like I guess you could say an individual unit of what you do in meditation, but we're going to make it a lot more practical for you to bring into your daily life. So if you'd like, if you're sitting, you can stay seated. If you're standing, whatever. But I'm going to ask you to probably just close your eyes because I think that'll be most helpful for you to drop into your body. Even though you don't need to close your eyes to do these exercises, I think it's helpful, especially as you're beginning to practice this. So just get comfortable, slow your breath down. If you'd like, you can turn off your screen as long as you can hear me. And I'd just like you to begin to focus on your breath. And notice if you can, as you breathe in and out through your nose, I want you to just start noticing if you can notice a temperature difference with the air going in through your nose versus the air going out. Just try to drop all your thinking and focus intently on the temperature of air going in and out through your nose. I hope you can notice a little bit of a temperature difference there. If you have thoughts coming in, just let them go. Okay, so now I'd like you to put your hand on your chest. Just notice the rise and fall of your chest as you continue to breathe in and out through your nose. Wonderful. So I encourage you to keep your eyes closed. This is actually one of my favorite because I am able to do it while I'm speaking. But that is to just really focus on the weight of your body. If you're seated, notice the weight of your body in your chair, feeling supported by your chair, the place of contact there. And if you're standing like me, you can notice the weight of your feet connected to the ground below. All right, next one I'd like you to do is to focus on the sounds in your environment. You can hear my family in the background. Actually, I hope you guys can't hear them as well. But what is the farthest away sound that you can hear? Helps to close your eyes for this one. Just focus intently on the farthest away sound you can hear. All right, now let's focus on the closest sound that you can hear. Could be your own breath. All right, lastly here, I would love for you can open your eyes if you'd like. Rub your thumb together with another finger, as I'm doing here, and just slowly rub your fingers together and see if you can notice the fingerprint ridges on your thumb as you rub your fingers together. You guys notice the fingerprint ridges? Awesome. So I didn't keep track of time, but I hope I was doing at least about 10 seconds for each or more. 10 seconds of any of what we did or any number of focusing intently on one sense is called a PQ rep or a positive intelligence quotient rep. And what that essentially is that individual unit of mental fitness of essentially dropping out of your thinking and into your body. And that's where your greatest intuition can be accessed. That's where you can develop what's called the self-command muscle to drop unhelpful thinking and access these sage powers, which are the fundamental ways to access improved performance and well-being and improve relationships. So it might sound kind of simple, but developing the ability to notice unhelpful thinking and drop into your body is a skill set that requires practice, just like physical fitness, lifting dumbbells in the gym. And the more you practice this, you develop that self-awareness and ability to say no thank you to the unhelpful thinking and then get into sage mode, which is where, as I said, your greatest performance and well-being arises from. So what's really cool about this that I like as well is it's very science-based. Like if we actually put your head under an MRI machine as you were doing this, we would see the sage regions of your brain activate and the saboteur regions deactivate. And over the long run, research shows that the gray matter in your brain, actually in the sage regions, will increase the more you practice this, and it'll decrease in the saboteur region. So if you're science, like the science behind it, you can read the book Positive Intelligence, but I love to myself kind of know that I'm actually changing the actual structure of my brain by doing this in a way that's serving my goals, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, let's dive right into what mental fitness is and the research behind it. Next slide. So mental fitness, a definition I like to use is it's your overall capacity to have your mind work in your favor rather than against you and your desired outcomes, especially in challenging situations. So when you have that challenging person at work or at home, that's when you really need mental fitness, right? Not to get upset and not to lose your cool and to stay in your game. The impact of having a high level of mental fitness is peak performance, increased confidence, peace of mind, wellness, and healthy or even thriving relationships. Fundamentally, mental fitness is about growing your self-awareness and that self-command that we spoke about so that you can have your mind be a tool to help you accomplish your goals rather than get hijacked by your own mind and not be able to achieve what you'd like. All right, next slide. So the research behind the Positive Intelligence, which is the mental fitness program that I'm speaking about, it's based on breakthrough original research by Shirzad Chamine, who's a Stanford professor, and he's been the CEO of one of the major coach training organizations. He's an executive coach. And it's based on the synthesis of recent discoveries across positive psychology, performance science, neuroscience, and cognitive behavioral psychology. Next slide. So this research includes results from hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams, Stanford students, world-class athletes, 1 million plus participants from all over the world. And this research is summarized in the New York Times bestselling book, Positive Intelligence, which was published, I think, at least 10 years ago, but obviously still very relevant and translated into 20 languages. Next slide. So the beauty of the Positive Intelligence program is that, you know, there's so many different personal development or leadership development programs out there, but through the power of factor analysis, they have actually broken down the very root causes that impact performance and well-being to simplify it. So this radical simplification in personal and professional development is really helpful because it kind of excludes all the excess that we don't need, right? An example of factor analysis would be that there are thousands of colors, but at the root, there are only 3, red, blue, and yellow. Next slide. So the results of the factor analysis research have found that there are only 3 core muscles. I mean, they're not literally muscles, but if we put the physical fitness metaphor into mental fitness, there's really only 3 core muscles that are at the root of mental fitness. And that's the saboteur interceptor, which we'll be speaking more about your saboteurs here shortly. The self-command, which is what we just practiced, the ability to drop out of thinking, whether it's helpful or not, just being able to command your mind to drop into your body. And the sage, which is where those 5 sage powers originate. All right, next slide. So as I mentioned, the factor analysis research has found that there are only 10 saboteurs. There's the judge. You can probably see that darker character with the gavel. For us legal oriented people, we can relate to the judge. But this is a judge that's not, you know, fair or helpful. This is a judge that's extremely demeaning and critical, and is constantly. It tells you that it tells you that you need it, but it really doesn't help you achieve what you want to achieve. And then there's 9 saboteurs. If you took the saboteur assessment, you'll be familiar with a few of those at least. And then the research also showed that there's only 5 sage powers. There's really only 5 core gifts or strengths that you need to access to be at your peak performance: empathy, curiosity, creativity, purpose, or navigating, and your laser-focused action. All right. So we're just going to stop sharing the slides temporarily here. I'd love to give you all a little bit of a workshop experience and have some insights. And let go of the research piece for now. I don't know how many of you took the saboteur assessment. If you didn't, you can, of course, take it after the workshop at my website, joanclairecoaching.com. But if you did take it, I'd love for you to look at your phone or your results if you printed them, and just want you to look at your results, particularly the top two that were on your assessment results. I find that most my clients and people that take this assessment do resonate with the top two, but sometimes they'll be like, no, I think the third is really more my saboteur. So just look at the top 3 or 4 and pick the 2 that you feel you resonate with the most. And Nicole is going to pull up a poll here. We're going to take a little poll for you guys anonymously to share what your top 2 saboteurs are. So I'm just going to read this poll here. So what are your top 2 saboteurs from the 5-minute free assessment you may have already taken at my website? Okay, so you're gonna, okay, it says single choice. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to choose 2, but either way, the hyperachiever is a little bit of a description here in case you didn't take it already. It depends on constant performance or achievement for self-respect. Okay, this isn't like literally every minute of your day you have to be achieving, but in general, a constant need to perform or achieve to feel good about yourself. Controller is an anxiety-based need to take charge and control situations and people. Hyper-rational is an intense and exclusive focus on rational processing of everything. Hypervigilant, continuous, intense anxiety about what could go wrong, like always waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Avoider, avoiding difficult and unpleasant tasks or conflicts. Pleaser is a strong need to be liked and earns it by helping, pleasing, rescuing, and flattering. Stickler is a bit of a perfectionist, needing for acute order and organization taken too far. Restless is constantly seeking greater excitement in the next activity, constantly staying busy. And lastly, victim is emotional and temperamental as a way to gain attention and affection. So we're just going to let you fill that out. I'm just going to speak a little bit more about saboteurs as you all choose your 1 or 2 top saboteurs. So I would just want you all to know that you are not your saboteurs. This isn't a personality or identity assessment. You know, in all my work with clients, it's not a matter of judging ourselves and finding reasons to judge ourselves. It's just self-awareness, fundamentally, seeing those unhelpful patterns that developed usually since childhood and that you still retain into adulthood, and having increased self-awareness of how that's getting in the way of your desired outcomes. So for an example, my top 2 saboteurs are hyperachiever and controller, which happen to be the top 2 here. And I know through the inner work I've done the past several years, especially in my work with my own coaches, that indeed this mantra, this idea that like I need to always be achieving something to feel good about myself is very present in my DNA, you might say, probably from even past generations. And the controller as well, like the need to feel like I'm in control of everything, of life, and of that control of that other people are doing what they should do, you know, in my own family. That's a tendency that I very much have very much in myself. So my experience with these saboteurs is not that they will go away completely as you practice mental fitness, but you'll be able to quiet them a great deal. And even the self-awareness of them alone is so valuable. So Nicole, where are we at with the poll results? Do we have most of the results?
About half of the people on have taken it. So I'd say let's give it 1 more minute. If you haven't
Okay,
yet submitted your answer, make sure we're going to share the results here in a minute so we can get a sense of what people are thinking today.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if you have any questions also about these saboteurs, feel free to put those in the question chat and we'll possibly alert me to that. And yeah, these saboteurs are really one way through mental fitness I think is really helpful is to just see kind of a common theme in our patterns of being through these saboteurs. With my own clients, we also look at our particular specific judgments and work with those. But I have really appreciated in the positive intelligence program the simplicity, going back through that factor analysis of seeing that indeed just this 5-minute assessment can give me a great deal of self-awareness into these saboteurs.
So we do have, while I'm about to close the poll here, Joan-Claire, we do have a question. If you could tell us the 5 sage powers again.
Oh yeah, sure. So you can either use this as nouns or verbs. So it's empathy, curiosity, creativity, purpose, and laser focused action. So just to describe that a little bit, empathy is the ability to have compassion for yourself and see your innocence, and which helps you then empathize with others. Curiosity is what they call the explore power, the ability to see things from different angles and explore, the gift in a possible failure or anything like that. Creativity is the ability to innovate. So if you have, if you're in your sage brain, you're going to have much greater access to other possibilities that you might otherwise in your saboteur, which is like a tunnel-based way of thinking. And that analytical ability is very valuable as an attorney or a legal professional or student, but too often we get caught up in that analytical tunnel-based thinking. And then purpose is your ability to connect to, excuse me, let me get a drink of water here. So purpose is your ability to connect to what's important to you. And like looking back at the end of your life, how you'd want to prioritize your time and what's important in any particular project. And then laser focused action is the ability to get into action and accomplish your mission. I'm sorry, losing my voice here a little bit. I did have a bad cold last month, so let's hope that I keep it up. But yeah, I hope that's helpful. Let me know if that's helpful.
I can also show us the results now from our poll.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we're pretty spread out actually quite a bit than what I expected. Okay, so looks like stickler, the perfectionist, is the highest, almost 20% there, a fifth of you. Hyperachiever, hyper rational. Okay, so this pleaser, avoider, and hypervigilant are all pretty tight at 14%, and hyperachiever at 10, and controller only at 5. Wow. That's not been my experience with at least my attorney clients, but I know there's a wide variety of people possibly here with students and pre-law and all over the place. So great. Well, so you can see that, we all have saboteurs, right? It's nothing to be ashamed of. This is just survival mechanisms. I will say one more thing about saboteurs. Another way to look at them is their strengths overused. So a lot of us, like if you're a hyperachiever, it's great that you're a go-getter and that you like to get things done and be active and in your work. But it's just that hyper part that's really the unhelpful part. It's great to be a high achiever, but the hyperachiever is where you constantly need to be achieving and accomplishing and having outward success in order to feel good about yourself, which actually really gets in the way with imposter syndrome as well. So great. So now I would like, as part of this workshop, we're still not going to, you can leave that up, Nicole, but I want to have a little bit more self-awareness piece of this workshop. And that is, if you have a paper or pen handy, I would love for you to write down your top 3 stressors right now in your life, January 9th, 2024. It could be in any area of your life. It could be relationships, work, health, whatever. And personal or professional, things that keep you up at night, causing you to feel frustrated, irritated, angry. Just go ahead and jot those down if you have a paper handy. And we're just going to give you a minute or so here, minute or two. Don't want to, if we had more time, I'd give you some more time, but just what comes to mind immediately. If you could just get rid of those top 3 stressors in your life, you feel like your life would be so much easier right now. some, I'll give you guys some other ideas here. It could be something like you're even imposter syndrome. You're comparing yourself to your peers in your professional work or in your educational setting, feeling like you're never good enough or cut out for the work that you do. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed with a never-ending to-do list. Maybe you're struggling with some time to shut off work and really focus on, other priorities like your family or other things that are important to you. Could be some relationship conflict. Maybe you're struggling with a health issue or insomnia. What are your top 3 stressors? We're just going to give you about 10 more seconds here. All right, so now looking at your list of your top 2 saboteurs or your top saboteur, most likely the top 2 though, can you see how those top saboteurs might be contributing to any of your stressors or even all of them? Just like you to take 30 seconds or a minute or so and reflect. You see a little bit of a correlation or causation between those top 2 saboteurs and those top 3 stressors. You don't need to do a deep analysis, but just see if you can find some connection there. All right, Nicole Winget or Nicole Gritta, would either of you be willing to share if you see any and as much detail as you'd be open to sharing on any of your saboteurs and stressors? And if not, totally fine as well. I did
Probably to
ask
the
them
shock
beforehand.
of no one that knows me on this call, my top 3 are tied, and they're hyper rational, hyperachiever, and controller with a strong 9.4. And I'm kind of laughing at myself because I didn't think of any of those as bad things. But I'll share some of my biggest stressors are human resource management. I unfortunately have to do some of the hard staffing calls in my work, so that's a stressor. Work competition and frankly, world events. What is going on in the world across the globe stresses me out on a daily basis. So hopefully that gives something for you to work with.
Yeah. Okay. So you said hyper rational, hyperachiever, and stickler.
Controller.
Oh, controller. Okay. And Nicole, would you be willing to share at all in any like actual correlation between any of those? How you see the saboteur playing out in that particular stressor for any of those?
Mike, I saw a tie between controller and world events because I have little to no control over them, yet they have such a major impact on my life. And maybe you can speak to this. I'm a high stress person and I thrive on that. I like it. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. So maybe you could speak to how someone who likes being high strung can balance this and not sabotage themselves versus does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because that's actually something I was going to get into in the next slides. I know we're getting closer to the Q&A time, but it's the idea, I think many of us high or hyperachievers have the idea that stress is what drives my performance. Like in order to be at my top level performance, I need to be stressed, or we have this belief that I'll just be lazy and kind of like sit back and kind of be, not achieving much. And that's something that I really had to overcome in my own personal development journey, that the idea that actually at my top level performance is when I'm feeling at the most ease and flow. So it's not a matter of like kind of feeling uninspired, right? And just like, I don't know, the idea I had for myself was kind of feeling like I'm just going to become this like person on the couch who doesn't do anything if I don't have that hyperachiever in me, because that's what we're used to. But even with top athletes, Olympians, their top performance is when they're in their body, when they have done PQ, they may not call them PQ reps, but they're supremely focused and they're not caught up in their analytical thinking. So the hyperachiever part, or the stress part, is the part we want to avoid. We want to really be able to be at our achieving what we want to achieve while we have less stress, because it's an energy expenditure, right? So if you want to have your top level performance, you want to conserve your energy and be in your place of ease and flow, connected to your purpose with self-empathy, and using those 5 sage powers with explore and laser focused action. So does that help at all, Nicole, or does that make any sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense. I definitely am going to give some thought about how to actually engage in that, because again, you get into your head that high stress is high performance, and I don't know how to flip that switch, but it'll be something. You've definitely given me some things to think about.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your vulnerability and your openness to different ideas and belief systems, because that's fundamentally what the saboteurs, they have justification lies. You need me. And they call them accomplice saboteurs to the judge, because the judge is always judging you. It's judging others. It's judging your circumstances. And those accomplice saboteurs, those 9 that we just went over, are really great for this legal, audience, helping the judge accomplish its mission, that you need it. Otherwise, you're going to fail or whatever. So I know we're getting closer to the Q&A time. Nicole, Greta, do we have time to I'm thinking here, maybe we better jump to the case study here.
All right.
I'm just going to briefly share, though, that based on what Nicole Winget said, just briefly, I'll share right here, energy impact matrix. So, this is something that we can use in mental fitness and with coaching and so forth. Is we really want to get in that top right quadrant where you're doing the most high impact tasks that are the most battery charging. And just maybe next slide, Nicole. So some people, this is an example of a person who's like spending a ton of time on something that's high impact but battery draining. And it's not necessarily that we need to cut out that activity, but by practicing mental fitness, we can actually shift into that sage mode and quiet the judge and the saboteurs that are beating yourself up as you're doing that activity. Like, say you're speaking and you're constantly telling yourself, you're really no good at this. That could be me right now, but I've been working on my mental fitness for some time. And then next slide, Nicole. Really want to, through mental fitness and cutting out, reprioritizing tasks, we want to get you into that top right quadrant where you are doing your highest impact activities and filling your cup, doing them in a battery charging way, or delegating tasks that you simply, don't enjoy for the most part. And the next, just one more on the next slide. So there's 3 strategies: shift from saboteur to sage, which is like doing those PQ reps and accessing the 5 sage powers, delegating or trading it, or just rebalancing, spending more time on the high impact battery charging activities and less time on the others, or even adding in new activities. So, all right, next slide, please. So I just want to give a little case study here, and hopefully we'll have some time for some Q&A. I did some work with, we'll just call her senior associate Jane, in a mid-sized law firm, and with a goal to make partner at her law firm sooner than later. I was hired by the managing partner because on average her hours were about 20 hours lower than that they hoped for her monthly billable hour requirement. She came in, struggling with organization and focus, meeting deadlines, keeping partners informed of her progress, maintaining composure when she was nervous on the spot in hearings, had a good deal of anxiety and self-doubt. And she let me know that she had ADHD. It was a diagnosis. She was on Adderall for that. But in the saboteur assessment, she had hypervigilant, stickler, and hyperachiever. And what I would diagnose as a very harsh inner critic. This isn't something she was aware of, right? Like, this isn't something in day-to-day that we're looking at. Constantly berating herself for not doing enough, not doing it well enough. But she, as I said, she had very little awareness of how much this was undermining her efforts and how to even deal with it. Next slide, please. So I worked with her for 6 months, which I don't think you know, really requires that much time typically, but 20 hours total, including the positive intelligence program with which we started very early on in our work together. And even as early as 3 months after working together, she went from 120 billables per month to roughly 160. It was that 40-hour increase in such, in only 3 months. And I attribute this really to her ability to focus on one task at a time, to capture more of her billable time, because she was jumping from one thing to another. Going back to that multitasking doesn't work slide, she was actually able to capture more of her time, but also the energetic component of it, quieting the voice of her judge, which, as I was just speaking about, and saboteurs, which increased her productivity because she didn't have that energy draining voice as active. She was able to learn how to drop out of the anxious, unhelpful thinking via the PQ reps, which we did earlier, practice self-empathy, which I really haven't gotten into in this workshop, but it's really a deep practice, the ability to really have empathy for yourself and acknowledge yourself, which gave her ability to also empathize with her clients, and they thanked her for that. Her presentation skills improved a great deal because she wasn't as judging herself and so nervous about messing things up, able to stay calm, and previously situations that caused her to crumble and lose her composure while speaking and so forth. Looks like I got cut off a little bit. All right, next slide. So just to wrap this up, this whole mental fitness piece, the positive intelligence program, and just the idea of self-command and saboteur, interceptor, and sage really requires at least an more intense initial practice. And I would say it's not even intense. It's just a matter of, even for maintenance, 15 minutes a day. It's not very much of your day. And it's not even all at once. For the program itself, there's an hour-long video training for 6 weeks. Next slide. So just briefly, I'm not going to go over this in detail, but it's just kind of showing an overview of the 6-week program. There's an hour-long video training each weekend, and then pretty much a 2-minute kind of practice in the app every few hours, every 2 to 3 hours from Tuesday through Friday, and then going through self-command, intercept the judge, getting into the saboteurs, and so forth. Next slide. So I would just love for all of you, based on a little bit of the workshop work that we did, what are the results? That was more of like what's holding you back, but what do you really want to accomplish in your life? Could be in your work, in your relationships, in your fitness, your physical fitness, even your mood. Like, what are those results that you really want? And then where are you currently at? And how are those top 3 stressors getting in the way, or those saboteurs really getting in the way of you achieving your desired results? And could positive intelligence be the bridge? Next slide.
So I think actually, Joan-Claire, that'd be a good place to interject a question we got a little bit ago.
Okay.
This question starts by saying that I am a classic multitasker. Do you think we are the way we are because we feel if we aren't, that we will fall down on the job?
I think that's actually a very insightful comment from that individual. As I was sharing with Nicole Winget, these saboteurs have a really tight grip on us. Most of us have, if we're in our 30s, 40s, and beyond, for decades, we've been operating on this operating system or this blueprint in our mind. The neural pathways are very well groomed. And so the challenge is that they have these, lies, you might say, of like, this is what you need to hold on to, because if you don't, you're going to lose your survival method. That literally can be the response that we feel. Like, if I let go of that inner critic or that hyperachiever, I'm going to be no one. I'm going to be worthless. Right. So I hope I'm answering this question with as far as multitasking. If you're used to multitasking and that's all that you've pretty much been practicing, it can be really challenging with the idea to slow down and just focus on one thing at a time. Because your belief system, your way of being is telling you need to do everything at once, or you're not going to accomplish what you need to accomplish. So with my clients individually, there's a commitment there to try on something new and slow down and just see for yourself. Like, let's just play around with this. You don't have to believe it right at the get-go, but let's let's try some of these PQ reps between, every 2 hours or as you switch tasks and see what happens for you. And uniformly, people find that it helps them achieve more and feel better. And yeah, so I honor your self-awareness and noticing that it's a tight grip and just being open to the idea that you could actually find an even better way to perform and feel better. Hope that's helpful. Any other questions, Nicole?
I don't think any at this time. That I'm going to go on to I know you've got a couple last slides
Okay.
here.
Yeah, we can go with
We've
those.
got about, we got about 12.
Okay, great. So we can do those, and then we could even jump back to the product, to some of those that we missed, unless there's other people that have questions or whatever. So yeah, so positive intelligence and, coaching or mental fitness, these are some qualities that I think are important to see in yourself first and foremost, if this is something that you want to pursue further. Are you committed to improving your performance and effectiveness dramatically while reducing stress? That's that productivity component that we spoke at the beginning with. Looking for a science-based and trusted system to make it stick, and willing to put in the initial effort to rewire years of mental habits that don't serve you. And I don't want to create an idea that you just put in 6 weeks of effort and then you're just coasting, because that's not the case. Just like physical fitness, if you stop practicing physical fitness, your muscles are going to atrophy and your physical fitness will go down, right? So it's more of a kind of a shift in your mindset to begin to practice a new way. And then after that, you don't have to fight so much that idea of like, I have to do it the old way. You've already bought into the new idea because you've seen how it works. And then you just put in the reps and continue the self-awareness, and new insights will emerge throughout the weeks and months and years ahead. It's like peeling back layers of the onion. So this isn't actually the only component I use in my coaching work, but it's a big piece of what I practice. So I love to share it with people. All right, next slide. So if you haven't already taken the 5-minute saboteur assessment, my website, joanclairecoaching.com, is a great place. You'll just scroll down just a few paragraphs and you'll see it right there. Thanks for highlighting that, Nicole. Please just email me your results if you'd like, for a special offer that will be coming by email after this workshop. I don't know when exactly that'll come out, but feel free to email me directly even before you receive an email, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you, complimentary, about your saboteur results. No strings attached. There's no pressure to work with me. It's just a matter of helping you answer your questions and have increased awareness of where you can apply this in your life. And then if you want to take a screenshot, I hope it's not cut off too much there, but I'm on LinkedIn. Oh, there you go. And you can just take a little picture. I think a lot of you know how to use the QR code with your camera, and it'll pop up a link that you can click on. And then would love to connect with you on LinkedIn as well, as I'm on that platform and post pretty regularly there. Next slide. Oh, maybe, I don't know if people need more time on that, but
Joan-Claire, I did have a question. So
okay.
I see that a lot of our attendees tonight are law students and pre-law members. How could someone like that benefit from the offer, or what you have to offer someone who hasn't yet made it on the other side, although I'm not sure if I'd use the word made it, but who isn't actively practicing law or doing something in the legal field and is still exploring if that's what's right for them?
Well, so I'm happy to have a conversation with you, even if you're not practicing yet. I so wish I had these tools when I was in college and law school. I had some really serious depressive episodes after relationship breakups, and like I said, the bus accident. So kudos to you if you're willing to take some time to look at this more closely and develop it as a practice when you're younger, so that if and when you do determine, whether you want to be an attorney or it's a legal professional, you have this skill set already. I think will greatly enhance your career. So please feel free to reach out to me. I really would love to get this in the hands of more people out there. And it's a way for me to give back to the legal profession as well. All right, so just to wrap up here, and maybe we'll circle back a little bit if we have some time, but would love for you, you know, at the start of this workshop, we said, let's create a mini breakthrough for you in terms of your self-awareness and your ability to notice the default patterns in your own life. So we're all different, right? We all have different saboteurs. Many of us attorneys, at least, I think, have the hyperachiever. Otherwise, like I said, it has its place. It's gotten us to where we are, but it's that hyper part that if we can remove that, redact the hyper part, and just leave the high achiever and really increase our well-being and keep the performance or even exceed our current level of performance. That's really what I would love for you to experience. So just encourage you to take some time after this workshop and reflect what has been your biggest insight, and what are you going to do with that insight? Is that going to be something that you can kind of like put on the shelf and, you know, that was interesting, or is it something that you feel is important you'd like to experiment with and commit to exploring, using your explore power, your explore sage power to find a better way to relate to yourself and others? And that's fundamentally what I've done. Can't say I'm perfect at this by any means. I'm a continual learner and finding better ways. I don't have great days every day, but I can assure you that through mental fitness and coaching and the work I've done, I'm at a much better place than I was years ago when I didn't have these tools. So I really encourage you to take what you can and run with it. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions or just want to have a chat to connect. I acknowledge you for being here tonight and taking the time to grow yourself. And I hope you can acknowledge yourself for that time as well, as it shows a growth mindset and the willingness to find a different way to improve your relationships and performance and well-being. So thank you so much. We've got...
Thank you, Joan-Claire. I was just going to say, you know, I was going to answer your first question. One of the biggest takeaways for me, and I even wrote it down here in my scribble pad, that your saboteurs are your strengths overused. And when you just said a moment ago, how you can use your explore power, it really caused me to get to the apply piece of your last slide here, which is, you know, how can I use that as an opportunity to work on some of my other skills so that I'm not drawing so much on those strengths that I'm overusing. So that was definitely a key takeaway for me today. We also did get one last question here in the Q&A about the slides and whether you'd be willing to share them after today's webinar. I think there was one slide in particular that the graphs energy impacts matrix that this particular attendee was interested in. So if you're okay with that, we can send those out to the attendees along with some more information about the services that you're providing and a opportunity to connect if they want more information.
Yeah, for sure. Feel free to share the slides the best way. That energy impact optimization chart, I think, is really, it's simple, but I think it's a really great way to take a closer look at how we're spending our time and allocating our time to the activities that have the highest impact and that we enjoy the most. So that kind of getting into that ease and flow. And there's, as I mentioned, those 3 strategies to get you up into that upper right quadrant. So
absolutely. Well, Nicole, did you have any closing thoughts before I wrap us up today?
Just a warm thank you to all the attendees and thank you to Joan-Claire. This was challenging in a good way. I look forward to digging in more. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Nicole. Both of you, Nicoles. It's been an honor to be here with you all. And I do really mean it. If anyone would love to just email me and ask a question or have a little chat on Zoom, I'm here for you and encourage you to lean into the insights that you had tonight. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And the recording of this session will be available in the next few weeks, along with the offer that Joan-Claire mentioned earlier, and be on the lookout for our next installment of the speaker series, which will be coming sometime in March. So hope you all have a wonderful evening, and thanks for joining us.
Bye. Thank
Good
you so
night.
much.